as promised, here's an update. After several weeks of telling you I had an update coming, it's just been busy doing all kinds of stuff. Fair warning, my garage is a bit of a mess because I'm doing like 7 different things at once, trying to kick this deadline. I'm going out of town for the next week, and so obviously I'm going to lose a week of working on the car, but I think I've done enough in the past week really. More work, wrench time has gone in this car in the past week than I put in this car in the past almost 6 years. So I mean, there's that, but I really think I should be pretty good on track to meet my goal of this car running on the 16th. So a few updates. The sloppy 5.3, if you want to call it that I got from my buddy Seth, is in the car now, and we went through it. Didn't mess with the long block or the short block itself too much because I just didn't see the point. Engine had 80,000 or some total 80,000 miles on it. It looked like it went a little long between oil changes, but for what I paid and what I got, I'm not terribly worried about it. I know the guys in the sloppy community have ran engines literally straight out of the junkyard and just slapped turbo kits, nitrous kits on them. Didn't even bother gapping the rings and have done amazing things in them. For what I'm trying to do, which is just get the car running, I think I'll be all right. Now, so the engine's in the car, truck manifold. I got the wiring harness I'm going through right now. It is a bit intimidating because it is a lot to take on compared to just, you know, plug and play like the car was originally if I had left the original harness and everything in the car. But be that as it may, I got the fuse box pretty much isolated on the engine side. For whatever reason, there's no alternator harness in the engine harness. Not sure what that's about, but I'll figure that out. I had a starter already from a previous project. I think it was off of Z06. It had like a loose starter terminal, but it'll work for the purposes of turning this over, so I'm not really terribly worried about that. I got an air to water I've had for years that I originally bought for this project. I'm going to go ahead and run that. I got an ice box with a pump. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Picked up a like a 2-inch core 22 by 18 diameter racing radiator out of somebody's Jeep project, rock crawler or something, for $50. Not even mad. Don't even care. Dude said it had a V8 in it, ran fine with just this radiator, so I'm sure it'll run this setup just the same with no problems. Had a set of TR6 spark plugs from this very car, you know, because I changed spark plugs pretty frequently when I was messing around with it back in the day. Had a set of practically brand new ones. Went ahead and threw those in there. Have a set of low ohm wires from Hendrix Racing. I bought just, you know, haphazardly off of Facebook. ICT bracket for the alternator and eventually the power steering pump, which since the 1500s didn't have hydro boost, this car should have power steering. Got a GTO rack off a guy, had to go to Missouri to get whatever. It's rebuilt. He's going full race car. So we got a rack back in the car now. I got to get outer tie rods to put on it so I can steer the wheel again and put the steering wheel back in it and build a little bracket onto the roll cage to bolt the factory steering rack, steering wheel and the whole little assembly back to it like it was factory. So I got to do that. That's not a big deal. Other than that, as far as the car starting, I do have one of those, I think it's a Race Quip setup deal that I bought years ago and had set up into the car. I've had this forever, or I guess it's a quick car, but whatever. So I have this little switch panel that I'm going to wire in when I get back. I'll wire ignition power to that button, or start. This the right wire, the start button, ignition power, and all that stuff from this fuse box that I got over here. I got all these wires pulled out. I also have to go ahead and wire the OBD2 plug so that I can have the serial connecting port for HP tuners and checking code. I'm going to try my best to salvage what I need from the original body and what was left of the engine harness I didn't need. Throw the power and ground and all that to the starter, wire up the alternator, figure out where that plug went because it's literally not here. So here's the plug, and it's nowhere in the harness. It's nowhere on this harness. I don't know what that's about, but I'll get to the bottom of that and figure that out. I guess I'm gonna have to. Outside of that, as far as the car starting, I should be able to start it there's oil in it. There's 6 or 7 quarts of oil in it, just because I know the further along I get, the last thing I want to do is get excited, get this thing wired up, hit the start button, and not have oil in it. So I went ahead and put oil in it just in case. That way, if I fire it up or rotate it, I don't bone myself. And really, I'm going to have to rotate it with the plugs, the ignition plugs, disconnected to pressurize the engine anyhow before I go to give it hot. So we're real close. We're real close. And this is just me working on it by myself. I mean, if I had help from somebody who was familiar, with what I'm doing to this level, I'd probably be even further along. But when I get back, I'll have roughly 12 days. And that first couple of days will be strictly wiring, just wiring. So the ignition, the starter, the alternator, odd ends and the harness. I'm not going to strip the harness because I don't know what I know what I need and what's there. I didn't pull this engine out of the original donor, and I didn't pull that harness out. So the last thing I want to do is strip everything off that I think I don't need, but I don't know where it goes because I didn't pick it up. I didn't take it apart and it wasn't labeled. So I'm going to leave the engine harness more or less in its entirety until we get it running. We can pull the codes. We can idle the car and see what the ECM is saying. It's receiving information wise what it's not, and then we can label everything and figure everything out. And then what we don't have readings for that we don't need, pull the harness back off and strip it. Or what I'm most likely going to do is just wind up the connectors I don't need and zip tie them out of the way nice and neat, and then just not even fuck with it, because think smarter, not harder. If I can turn it off in HP tuners and then just neatly, fold back or zip tie the connector I don't need out of the way in a nice neat fashion and turn it off, or zip tie it or whatever, or RTV it or something so it doesn't get any water in it. If it does stay powered up, I'm gonna just do that, because if I have stuff that is key hot or running hot and I can at least rob the power off of it to run, like say the wideband or something like that, and it's already wired into the harness, into the factory fuse block, why wouldn't I just do that? Remember, smarter, not harder. So I don't mind a couple of plugs unplugged for shit that I'm not using, because it's not a show car. It's not a fucking, Mac Daddy race car. We're just trying to get it running. And once we get it running, then we can go back and perfect it and clean it up and this and that and the third. So I'm excited, man. I'm real fucking excited. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Power is concerned. It's just got a cam in it. Stage 3. Fuck, I don't even Texas. I think it's a Texas Speed. Or no, I don't know what I think it's a BTR Stage 3 boost, whatever cam I bought off a guy, and it came with push rods and link bar lifters. I ended up selling the lifters because I didn't need them, but if my math is correct, they should be the same height as the LS7 lifters that are in there. So my push rod length should be right about what it needs to be, because he had a stock block, stock headed car. I should be within a couple thousandths of what it should be. And like I said, I already had it, so I wasn't buying new because I already had it on hand. So fuck it. Forward-facing truck headers. I got to buy the Y pipe, or get a hold of somebody with the Y pipe off of a truck so I can cut the flanges down just past the OB2 hole, and then shape it and all that kind of stuff here. It'll be a little tight, but I think it'll be fine. Just kind of come out here a little ways, then Y it to about here, then put the T6 flange here-ish. I'll probably have to tuck the cut into the frame some so I can move the turbo up over as much as I can. So it's tucked in this little corner here, and then just run the downpipe. Depending on how much room I have left, either down and across, or just kind of snake it down and out in this hole that's already cut from before. But I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Obviously, that's more for drivability. But I think my primary is going to be just to run it in this what should be a pretty good gap in and across. Make a little bracket there, run it out the side, because I think I already have a hole in the bumper anyways from the previous design. And then I'll box all that up and weld that back up, and it just heat wrap it or coat it or something to kind of keep the heat down. The radiator I picked up part in the string. I I don't have a lot of extra material at the moment, so I just strung everything up so I can kind of get the concept out of my mind. The bumper will go on here because these brackets here are from the original radiator, the factory radiator, which hung here and it came out to about right where this one is. And of course it's string, so I can move it here, there, and then V it with the air to water like you see here. And then just kind of watch my front here and kind of tuck these in a little bit more. Once I go to make the brackets to weld, and then bolt this and then work with the brackets that are already on there, bolt those and bolt everything to the car, I'll you know, move it in as needed and then just run a little simple snake of a pipe here, and then, you know, wherever this ends up, we'll clock that and just kind of, you know, gently shape it up and over here. Simple. Won't use a whole lot of tubing either. And just keep it simple, man. I mean, the biggest thing is to get this thing to fire up. So, like I said, when I get back from our little vacation, seeing some family, I'm going to hit wiring real hard, clean all this up. I'm probably going to mount the fuse panel right around here. Just mount it there. Cut all this loom out, loosen it up, and move everything around some. Mount the fuse panel, the fuse block here. Leave the ECU there and just get like a little bracket for it. Maybe. I know guys unravel all this stuff and they'll mount it in the car and all it. We'll see, man. At this point, I was trying to get my goal achieved here, which is to get it running. I have no problems putting it in the engine bay, obviously, and putting a little heat shield on it, and because I mean that's where it is, factory. That's where the factory truck ECU was right about there. The factory GTO ECU was over here. So I mean, the fact that it's in the engine bay doesn't bother me at all. And then we'll heat shield it. We'll put a big old massive fan on the front of this thing or behind it, wherever it fits. I got that cowl hood there to help get some of the heat out. And mind you, this is not going to be a daily driver by any stretch of the imagination. So it's going to have to run, you know, the occasional cars and coffee, maybe go to a car show. My little one is really excited to ride in it. So it'll have to, you know, be drivable, but I mean, we'll do our best to mitigate the heat. And since I don't have AC, we will have power steering. There won't be any heat or nothing like that, just a fucking radiator, a big giant, you know, racing style radiator, lots of aluminum, cowl hood, massive. I'll get 1 or 2 massive fans to put on this thing to just pump air in this thing when it's idling. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. I don't think we'll have any cooling issues, to be honest. Truck water pump. I'm gonna have to convert to cable because this is a drive-by-wire setup, and I don't want to mess with having to get a drive-by-wire pedal and do the cross wiring and all that kind of stuff. The GTO originally had a drive-by-wire pedal. I still have that pedal. It's over here somewhere, but for the sake of simplicity, I just want to run a cable throttle system. So we'll see how far I can get with this ECU. If I have to convert to a LS1 setup or whatever, then that's fine, because those were cable driven cars, or a 04 GTO, which was also a cable pedal car. That's fine. There's enough of those in junkyards, unfortunately, that I should be able to get a 04 GTO pedal with the cable piece to bolt in there like factory, and then figure out the ECU part and run whatever cables I need to the IAC and the throttle position sensor, because I don't believe the drive-by-wire ECUs had those provisions. Some of them do, like internally, but they're not in the harness because all of that was done electronically. So we'll cross that bridge. But for this is just plugged in like that, and then I might get O2 sensors to plug in too if I can, grab some cheap ones just to put on the harness for the sake of starting the car and it not throwing any codes and immediately shutting itself off like it does if it doesn't detect certain parameters like the throttle position or the throttle body itself and the primary O2 sensors, but be able to at least start it and have it halfway idle. That's another beauty of having a cable throttle, because you can kind of crank the blade up enough to force it to idle enough to get, you know, check your oil temperature, or not oil temperature, your oil pressure. Make sure your oil pressure is good. Pump up the lifters, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you don't have any misfires. Check your fuel system to make sure you don't have any leaks, that kind of stuff. And then shut it off. Once you prove the basics are good, then you go back and clean everything up. So the other issue I'm going to have is fueling. This is the truck fuel rail, and it's got a return style setup, which their GTO did not have originally, which isn't a big deal because I have an aftermarket fuel pressure regulator, which has a provision for return. And so I can get the adapters and put like a -6 and a -8 or whatever, like a -8 in and a 6 out into that to and fro. And then, you know, the 10, I think it is, from the tank. And I don't know if I'm going to run these A1000s, which I've heard mixed feelings about them, or if I'm going to run twin Hellcat pumps, which I already have. But the problem with those is the factory tank doesn't fit. So I have to either narrow it or get a very elaborate drop-in system for a fuel cell, vice running a basic bitch fuel cell with the A1000 I already have and calling it good, and just simply not knowing how much fuel's in the car at any given time. So those are some of the minor issues I got to work out. But for right now, when we get back, wiring and firing, that's it. Even if we got to hit it with ether, if the fuel system's not together, but the electrically everything is good to go and the starter and everything's hooked up, I'll get one of my boys out here to just feed it ether, just so we can make sure that electronically everything works. Like, you know, ignition, the computer's powered up, the coil packs are working, that part. As long as I can verify that part is good, everything else is whatever. So, a little long-winded, but I'm very, very excited. It's been a very long time since this car has run. You guys have no idea. I am stoked as all get out. And there's a flywheel on the car. TH 400 parts. I got a buddy of mine I'm getting the TH 400 from. Should be ready to pick up when I get back. We're going to throw that in the car, quick time bill housing and all that kind of stuff. I got a converter that's just big enough for the cam that I got, and we're gonna do something, man. I'm you know, no promises, but we very well may be starting idling and possibly rolling through the gears on this thing. No drive shaft still, but just click, 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 park, you know, neutral, reverse, drive, 1, 2, 3, 4, at idle on the 16th. That's very possible. So stay posted, and I'll keep you guys abreast of what we got going on. Thanks for watching.